Hi everyone, so this lesson I'm going to go over long division of polynomials. The first thing I'm going to do though is do the do now with you. So it says completely factor this polynomial. Now you need to know how to pick the types of factoring. So looking at this type of factoring, I see four terms, and the only other type of factoring we can do with four terms is grouping. Now I do notice though that there is a GCF, okay? There is a GCF in this, and you should definitely check for that first. You can take out a 2 and a D. So first I'm going to take out a 2D and be left with D to the third plus 3D squared minus 9D minus 18. And that was very silly because this is 27. Okay. All right, so we're going to bring this down the middle. I'm going to take out a D squared here and be left with D plus 3. And I'll take out a negative 9 here so I can have a D plus 3 as well. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write D squared minus 9 and then D plus 3 and drop down the 2D as my GCF. This right here is dots, so I can go further and do D plus 3, D minus 3, and then another D plus 3, and do 2D here. You could also write this as 2D, D plus 3 squared if you want, because there's two of them. Either way is acceptable. So this lesson goes over long division with polynomials, and we're going to learn how to divide something that looks like this. But what I want to go over is just the problem without the letters. Now, if you notice, it talks about if x equals 10, then this division can be represented by this polynomial. So I want to go over how you do long division without this huge polynomial with the letters. If you can notice, this is 13, 1, 5, 7, and 3. So it is basically this problem just with letters, and that's what we do in algebra. We represent things with letters. Okay, so I'm going to go over long division over here, and then we are going to just apply it to letters. Now, if you remember back in whatever grade you learned long division, there were 3 steps: divide, multiply, and subtract. So what you would do is you would take the number here and divide it by the first 2 numbers here. So you would do 15 divided by 13, and you would get 1. And that 1 would go here. Then what you do is you would multiply 1 times 13 and get 13, and you would subtract, and you would end up getting 2. You would drop this down and get 27. So then you would start the whole process over again, and you would divide 27 by the same outward number, 13. That would get you 2, and you would do 2 times 13, and you get 26. Subtract. You would get 1. You would drop down the 3, and then you start all over again, and you do 13 divided by 13 equals 1. Boom. Multiply here. 1 times 13 is 13. Subtract, and you get 0. And that would tell you that 121 is your quotient of 1,573 divided by 13, which means 13 is a factor of this because there is a remainder of 0. Because we know that 1573 now factors into 13 times 121. So now all we have to do is use the same exact process though, but with letters. Okay? It's not going to be too crazy. I'm going to try my best to go back and forth between these two different versions so you can kind of see how they're very similar. The first thing that happened though is, if you notice, we did 15 divided by 13. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide the first term by the first term. That's your first step. Divide, multiply, subtract. So we're going to divide x cubed by x. You'll get x squared. And you're going to put that right here. You're going to want to put it above where the other x squared is. Hold on, let me just make this nice and set up so, because I do have a little bit of a scrap paper on the side of my long division problems just to see what goes on. All right, so I divided. Now I'm going to multiply. You're going to multiply by the whole outer piece. It's always by the whole outer piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do x plus 3 and multiply it. Distribute this in, and that'll give me x to the third plus 3x squared. And that goes underneath this. lining up with the proper exponents, like terms. The next step, we divided, we multiplied, now we're going to subtract. So I'm going to subtract here and change the sign to a negative here. These will cancel. 5x squared minus 3x squared is 2x squared. And you're going to drop this down just like we did with the other one. You can drop down the 3 as well if you want to. Okay, so let's just recap what I just did. What I did was I divided the first term by the first term, and then I got x squared, and I multiplied this outer piece by what I got, just like how I was doing it before. Remember before I was going like this times that was getting me this, okay? But I just showed it on the side over here. And then I subtracted both the pieces. So let's do it again. So you're going to take 2x squared, you're going to do 2x squared, and divide it by x. It's always the first term divided by the first term, okay? And you're going to end up getting 2x. That'll go up here. Okay. Now what you're going to do is you're going to multiply into this. Multiply into that. So it's going to be 2x times x plus 3. So that'll go in, you'll get 2x squared plus 6x. Again, that's going to line up perfectly underneath. We divided, we multiplied, now we're going to subtract. Okay, these will cancel. 7x minus now 6x is 1x. Drop down the 3 plus 3. Okay, and then one more time, divide the first term by the first term. X divided by x is 1. So that's going to go up here with my quotient. And I'm going to, so I divided. Now I'm going to multiply this into that, this whole 1 into the whole x plus 3. And this will get you just x plus 3. That'll go underneath this. And then you'll subtract and get 0. Okay? Now this tells us that x plus 3 is a factor of this big polynomial here, and the quotient is here. Okay. So it says, notice for this question the remainder is 0. Therefore, we know that x plus 3 is a factor, and x equals negative 3 is a root of the function. Now, you guys should remember what roots are. It's where the equation crosses the x-axis. That's an Algebra 1 topic. But we will get into that more in the later lessons of this. So let's move on. So we're going to do a bunch of other long division problems, and you guys are going to catch on just fine. So what I usually suggest is, at this point, you should try to pause the video and try one on your own and see how far you can get, and then replay it. Okay, so either you're pausing right now and trying it on your own, or you're just going to watch it because you need another problem done out for you. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my division problem. Now I do want to keep you guys mindful of the fact that there's a missing x here. So I'm just going to put that in there. Maybe it'll help us, maybe it won't. If you notice it goes from 3 to 2 to just a normal number, there's no x value in between. So putting that 0x will sort of help us not make any mistakes. You don't have to put the 0x in there, but it does help some people not make as many mistakes when they're doing the long division. Okay, so remember the 3 steps are divide, multiply, subtract. You always divide the first term by the first term to start. So I'm going to do, let me just move this over so we have some space. Okay, so I'm going to do 2x to the third divided by 2x. 2's will become 1, and then we'll end up with x squared. And I'm going to put that above my x squared over here. So I divided. Now I'm going to multiply by the whole outer piece, 2x minus 2. Distribute this in. That'll get me 2x to the third minus 2x squared. And I'm lining that up with my proper exponents. I divided, I multiplied, now I'm going to subtract. So I'll change this to a minus sign and this to a plus sign. And this will go down. And by the way, let me just recap why that's even happening. When you subtract, you're subtracting the whole thing. So this is going into both things. That's why this becomes a minus and this becomes a plus, just so you guys know. This will cancel, which should always happen. The first term should always cancel. And I'll have negative 4x squared plus 2x squared. So that's a negative 2x squared. Drop down the 0x and drop down the 2. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start the whole process over again. Divide the first term by the first term. So negative 2x squared divided by 2x. That'll get me a negative 1x, and that's going to go right up here. Okay, I divided, now I'm going to multiply by the whole outer piece, so 2x minus 2. This will distribute in to get me negative 2x squared plus 2x. And then I'm going to change my signs because I'm subtracting, so that'll become a positive, this will become a negative. This will cancel. You'll be left with negative 2x. Drop down the 2. Okay. Alrighty, so then I got to do it again. I'm going to divide the first term by the first term. It's a very repetitive process. As long as you can figure out the first, 3 steps, you're able to do it over and over again. So negative 2x divided by 2x is negative 1. That'll go up here. Okay? And then I'm going to multiply the whole outer piece, this guy right here. Boom, boom. Distribute that in. I'll get negative 2x plus 2. And then I'll subtract. So change both signs, these will both cancel, and I'll get 0. So again, because I have a remainder of 0, I know that this is indeed a factor of this polynomial, and this is another factor of it. But that's the quotient, that's the one we wanted to find. Okay, so if you think you got the knack for it, I suggest you pause the video and try to do this one on your own, and then press play and see how I'm doing it. Okay, so hopefully you guys tried it on your own. And let's go ahead and do this long division. Okay, so I'm going to divide the first term by the first term. Now this whole side work I'm doing here, you don't really have to show if you're getting good at it. It is just for me to kind of see what's happening. I like showing it. It also helps people get partial credit. But anyways, so I divided. Next step is to multiply. By what is this? X plus 3. This will distribute in. I'll get x squared plus 3x. Next step is to subtract. Change both signs, this sign and this sign. These will cancel. You'll end up getting 3x plus 9. Okay. And then the whole process starts all over again. You're going to divide the first term by the first term. So 3x divided by 3. No, divided by x. My bad. Because that's an x. Okay. This will get me just 3. And then I'll multiply by the whole outer piece. This will distribute in. We'll end up getting 3x plus 9. Subtract by changing both signs. You get 0. Boom. That's your answer. Remainder of 0 means this is a factor. Now, side note, I just want you guys to realize that this question makes a lot of sense because we have x squared plus 6x plus 9. And you guys remember that factoring is really just division. If you did AM on this, you'd say x and x. Factors of 9 that add to 6 are 3 and 3. And that makes so much sense because look, we divided by x plus 3 and we got out x plus 3. Okay, so there's just a bunch of other questions here and we're going to go for them. Again, I do suggest that you press pause if you want to try it out on your own. Okay, so this one here is definitely a little larger, but that's okay. We can handle it. Remember, just a side note, that this is called the divisor, this is called the dividend, and the answer is called the quotient. So divisor, dividend, quotient. Those are your vocab terms for this lesson. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this thing. Divide the first term by the first term. So 2x to the fourth divided by 2x squared. The 2's will cancel to 1 and you'll end up with x squared. And I'm going to put that over here because that's over the x squared. So it kind of shows us that we're not too far off from the end. Then I'm going to multiply by the outside because remember 3 steps. Divide, multiply, subtract. So I divided. Now I'm going to multiply by the outside. Now do be mindful that there is a missing letter here. 2x to the fourth, and then this is going to get me negative 3x squared. So I should put that over here under the other x squared. You got to try your best to see where the letters will line up because otherwise you'll get the wrong answer and you don't want that to happen. Okay, so we divided, we multiplied, now we're going to subtract. So changing my signs, this cancels. The 14x to the third will drop down. And x squared plus 3x squared is positive 4x squared minus 12x minus 6 because I'm dropping these guys down. Okay, same process over again. Divide the first term by the first term. So 14x to the third divided by 2x squared. You'll get 7x. I'll put that over here. Okay, we divided. Now we're going to multiply by the outside. This will distribute in to get you 14x to the third. It should always get you the same thing you started with, minus 21x. Again, please be careful that you're lining up with the proper letters, exponent, I mean. We're going to subtract now, so change this to a negative, change this to a positive. This will cancel. 4x squared. And then we'll have negative 12 plus positive 21. I think I wrote this wrong. That's okay. We'll just fix this. If you just realize that this is supposed to be a 21, I'm so sorry. That's okay though. This cancels and then we'll get a minus 6. So just, I had a little bit of a mishap. I read that backwards. Okay, but we only needed to know that now. So those cancel and then this negative 6 will drop down. All right, so then I'm going to do the first term divided by the first term and I'll get 4x squared divided by x squared. And then I'll just get a 2 because the x squareds will cancel and 4 divided by 2 is 2. That'll go here. And then I'll multiply the outer piece, which is 2x squared minus 3. That'll go in, so I'll get 4x squared minus 6. Change the signs because we're subtracting, you get a remainder of 0. So that's your quotient. Okay. Next one. All right, so again, you should pause the video and try another one on your own, and then unpause it to see if you got the right answer. It's really important that you people who are doing this at home are pausing the videos so that you can make sure that you're doing the math correctly. Now, I do want you to be mindful that there are some missing exponents here. Now, you could choose to put those missing 0, like 0x cubed and 0x into here, but I'm going to do one without it just so you guys can see that you don't have to put that in there. 5x to the fourth divided by x squared. So remember, the first step is to divide. You'll end up getting 5x squared, and that'll go over this guy. Okay, and then we multiply by the whole outside. This will go in to get you 5x to the fourth minus 5x squared. And then you're going to subtract by changing both signs, and then this will get you a negative x squared plus 1. Okay, then I'm going to divide by this, by that, and you'll get x squared divided by, well, negative x squared divided by x squared, you'll get a negative 1. That'll go up here. We'll multiply by the outer piece. That'll distribute in. So you get negative x squared plus 1. Last step is to subtract. These guys will cancel each other out to 0. Okay. So the next question says, determine the quotient and remainder when this is divided by that and express your answer in the form QA plus RA over DA. Now, this is really not supposed to confuse you. It's supposed to just tell you that your answer is going to be the quotient plus the remainder over the divisor. Okay? If there's no remainder, this won't exist. Okay? But if there is a remainder, that part will exist. All right? So let's see what happens. 3a minus 2, and we're going to divide that by 6a to the third plus 11a squared minus 4a minus 9. Okay. My 9 looks like an a, so let's fix that so we don't get confused. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start the process. So I'm going to divide the first term by the first term. So 6a to the third divided by 3a. That'll get you 2a squared. I'm going to put that over here. Okay, so you divided. Now you are going to multiply by the whole outer piece. 3a minus 2. This will go in. You'll end up getting 6a to the third minus 4a squared. You divided, we multiplied, now we're going to subtract by changing these signs. This will cancel, which is a good thing, and this will end up getting you a 15a squared. Drop down the other guys, minus 4a minus 9. And then you start the whole process over again. Take your first term divided by your first term. So 15a squared divided by 3a. When you do that, you're going to get a 5a plus 5a up here. Do not forget to write your quotient on the top because people do forget that. Multiply is the next step, and you'll end up getting 15a squared minus 10a. We divided, we multiplied, now we're going to subtract, so change both signs. That'll cancel. You'll end up getting a 6a, and then drop down the negative 9. Start all over again. Divide the first term by the first term. 6a divided by 3a. This will get you 2. And you can start to see this is a good sign because we've got a squared, a, and 2. So you're doing the process correctly when you see them go down like that. Then you're going to multiply by the whole outside. When I mean the outside, I'm talking about this guy. That'll go in. You get 6a minus 4. And the last step is to subtract. Subtract, add. Negative 9 plus 4 is a negative 5. This is your first problem that we've had a remainder. So this means that this is not a factor of this guy on the inside. But we do have to show the remainder, and that's where this little form comes into play. This whole quotient plus the remainder divided by the divisor. So what we're going to do is our quotient, which is 2a squared plus 5a plus 2, plus your remainder, which is negative 5, over your divisor, which is 3a minus 2. Okay, this is the proper way to write your answer. I would actually go even further, and I would write it like this. 2a squared plus 5a plus 2. When you have a positive and a negative next to each other, we know we get a negative, which will make the whole fraction negative. This is your answer. So this is your quotient. That's what they're talking about here. This is your remainder, and this is your divisor, because we divided by 3a minus 2. Okay. And I think we have one more question. Okay. So it says, use the long division algorithm, which is just long division, to evaluate this. So I'm going to put x minus 3 on the outside, divided by x to the 5th, minus 2x to the 3rd, minus x squared plus 2. Now be mindful that we do have missing exponents in here, missing a 4th and an x. So just make sure you line them up correctly when you're doing it. All right, so divide, multiply, subtract. Those are your 3 steps. Divide the first term by the first term. Now I do suggest you pause and try this on your own. This one is a little bit longer, but that's okay. Please make sure that you do your best to take this slow and steady, and you'll get the right answer. So I divided. Now I'm going to multiply in, and I'll get x to the 5th minus 3x to the 4th. And then I'm going to change my signs, minus plus, because I'm subtracting. Now this is why I started to put the 0 in the middle, because look, I have x to the 3rd and x to the 4th on top of each other. Do not combine these. Don't make that silly mistake. What you're going to do is you're going to just pull 3x to the 4th down, and then do minus 2x to the 3rd minus x squared plus 2. You can't combine the 3rd and the 4th. They're not like terms. Okay? And then, guess what? You're going to start the whole process over again. Divide the first term by the first term. So 3x to the 4th divided by x. And you'll end up getting 3x to the 3rd. And that'll go here. You divided, now you're going to multiply by the whole outside piece. This will go in. You'll end up getting 3x to the 4th minus 9x to the 3rd. We divided, we multiplied, now we're going to subtract. So change this to minus, change this to plus. Boom. You're going to end up getting 7x to the 3rd and drop these down. Minus x squared plus 2. We're not done yet. You're going to keep going. I know it. This one's a tedious one. But it's actually kind of fun when you get the process down, because it's just the same thing over and over again. And then when you end up getting a remainder of 0, it feels good. So I'm going to divide the first term by the first term. And I'll end up getting 7x squared. And that's going to go up here. Okay, 7x squared. And then I'm going to multiply by the outside piece. This will go in. I'll end up getting 7x to the third minus 7 times 3 is 21x squared. We divided, we multiplied, now we're going to subtract. Change both signs. This will cancel. I'll end up getting a 20x squared, drop down our 2. Start all over again. Divide this term by that term. Okay, so I get 20x squared divided by x. This gets me just 20x. Put that up here. Okay. Multiply by x minus 3. This will go in. I'll end up getting 20x squared minus 60x. I divided, I multiplied, now I'm going to subtract. Change this sign, change that sign, cancel that out. These again will not combine because one has an x and one does not. So 60x plus 2. Almost there. You can tell you're almost there because there's an x with no exponent. All right, divide this term by this term. So I'm going to do 60x divided by x. That gets me just 60 plus 60. And I'm going to multiply by x minus 3. This will go in. You'll get 60x minus 180. And then change your signs because you're subtracting. And 182 is your remainder. So the proper way to write this would be your whole quotient and add on 182 divided by the divisor. So this is your answer right here. Because basically what would happen is that since it's not a perfect factor, if you multiplied this by this and you just added the 182 in, you'd end up getting your polynomial here. Okay? So I hope this helped you with long division. Watch the video again, do another problem again. If you didn't get it, go back to the beginning where I go over a little bit slower, but you will get it because it's the same thing over and over again. There's also other videos that are up that you can watch as well.